Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Da 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 that's da da that's da 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 da. You've leveled up. Woohoo! And you got some items. You got a potion that
some XP. What are you talking? Items.
XP?
Yeah. XP is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, because the items you're holding them in your inventory until the last boss when you think you're gonna need it, and you actually never use it.
Yeah, it's so true.
I have 99 Phoenix Downs. I'm ready. All right, Final Fantasy, everyone, is almost here. It's so exciting to reveal one of the brand new cards from the set.
I mean, Final Fantasy, everyone's so excited about it, and myself included.
Yeah.
You know that Final Fantasy 1 was the first ever video game that I bought?
Whoa.
Yeah, like I saved up my lawn mowing money to buy the NES, and the first game I bought for the NES was Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, it was a system seller. You know?
And one of the great, franchises, games of all time.
Yeah, I have very fond memories of playing the Final Fantasies on the SNES.
Yeah,
like 3, 4, 5. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so just seeing like Cloud and everybody on the battlefield, like we've gotten to play with the cards because of game nights and other things.
Dude.
You just kind of get giddy about it.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, Cecil, although I've been told it's Cecil.
16 Cecils.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Cecil
16
for mine.
Sids, sorry.
I'm gonna say Cecil for the rest of my life, just FYI.
All right, yeah, I'm gonna say Titus instead of Titus.
Okay.
Before we get into it, let's talk about our sponsors, cardkingdom.com/command, because you're gonna want to pick up those Final Fantasy cards. Maybe you're buffing up another deck. All the equipment decks in the world just have a huge jump for joy thanks to the Final Fantasy cards. Or maybe you're making a Cloud Strife deck.
You
Pretty
should be.
sweet.
Yeah. All the sort ofs? Come on.
Yeah. Cardkingdom.com/command is the place to go. They've got your Magic single, sealed product, and more for both Final Fantasy and future and prior sets. So that when you're getting those play boosters, the draft environment looks really spicy. You can go ahead and go there and support the show while you're doing it. Of course, get all your cards in a single convenient package. How convenient is that? Because when you're building this deck, you want it to get there on time and you want to be able to play it. Cardkingdom.com/command.
Yeah, I am excited about the draft environment. It looks really sweet.
I can't wait.
And of course, once you get those cards, you want to protect them and you want your battlefield to look awesome. UltraPro.com/command is the place we go for our own game accessories. So if you want to get some sweet accessories that will protect your cards and make your battlefield look awesome, if you want to deck everything out in Final Fantasy. Also, they got other lines like the Mana 8. Mm-hmm. The great thing about Ultra Pro is they have the licensing agreement, so they have a lot of the Magic IP and the Universes Beyond stuff on all the game accessories. So again, UltraPro.com/command is the place to go to find all that.
And the last way to support our show is directly patreon.com/commandzone. Patrons get access to game nights and extra turns a day early, as well as some tiers get some exclusive content like Turn Talk, where we talk about the game right after extra turns. So if you want more of your amazing guests that we have on the show, you can check that out. We also have a Discord for everyone that can interact with Josh, myself, other members of the team, Rachel, and ask us questions. It's a great place to get more in-depth and into the details and the nitty-gritty of Magic the Gathering with a great community. And of course, we shout out one lucky patron every single episode. So this episode is dedicated to Samuel Stokes.
Do you think Samuel is stoked about Final Fantasy?
No, he's Stokes.
He's like, I've never heard that joke before, guys.
You can put that one in your back pocket, Samuel. You're welcome. That's what you get for being a patron. Free jokes.
Samuel's eyes rolled directly out of his head.
They're still rolling. It's going around the whole earth right now. They're rolling so hard.
All right, let's get to the main topic here. This is our Final Fantasy preview card. Thank you, Wizards of the Coast. Spoiler alert, it's one of the new summon sagas.
Cool.
So if you haven't seen, they've already previewed a few of these other cards, but they took the saga mechanic, and then they made it a creature, which is kind of a call to how the video game works, right? Where you will summon a creature for that battle.
Comes in, helps you, does some cool, powerful stuff.
Yeah, but it doesn't walk around with you on the map. Yeah. You have to summon it again, the next battle if you want to keep it around.
Yeah, it has a time expiration and it goes away.
Yeah, and that's how sagas work, and making them creatures kind of really is a nice, combination of the video game with the card game. I thought it was pretty elegant and pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a great way to expand upon the design space, which is, you love to see it because, obviously you can't do triple-faced cards in Magic, you know what I mean?
Right, don't give them any ideas. They might try it.
I don't know how that's going to work. Peel a sticker off? Oh, no. Yeah, but I like how they've expanded on the sagas here.
They did do a sticker card.
They did do a sticker card.
Don't give them ideas.
Yeah,
Gavin,
exactly.
Close your ears.
Close your ears, yeah. We love what you're doing with summons. So this is a really exciting one. This This is from Final Fantasy 15, but the summons have been in a lot of the different Final Fantasy games. So should we introduce the card?
Yeah, do the honors, Jimmy.
It's the meanest and it's the greenest summon of all time. It's eating its veggies. It's Summon Titan!
Sun Titan!
Summon Titan!
Summon Titan!
Summon Titan! Summon Titan! It's 3 green for a 7/7 reach trample enchantment creature that is a Saga giant. It is pretty gigantic, and it's got 3 chapters. In the first chapter, when it enters the battlefield, it says 1, mill 5 cards. And then the second chapter, which happens after your draw step on the next turn, presumably, is return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped.
Oh.
And then the third chapter, it says, until end of turn, another target creature you control gets trample and gains +X, where X is the number of lands you control. So hopefully that's like 8, 9, 10, +10. It could be really big.
Yeah. I mean, on its floor, like you had 5 to cast this, you mill 5 cards, let's say you mill 2 lands, bring them back. It's, 8 or 9, I'd say, is a pretty modest scenario for what it's going to pump. It's good that it gives that buff to another creature because when it hits chapter 3, as all sagas do, you will have to sacrifice it. You'll get the effect, but the Summon Titan is going to go away at that point.
You won't even get a combat step. It just goes away after the draw step.
And that's sort of the thing you realize when you start analyzing or evaluating these summon creature cards.
Yeah.
Like if you think about it, Summon Titan is going to get 1 attack in, right?
Yep.
You play it, you can't attack that turn, it mills. The next turn, it does the thing where it brings the land back, then you could attack with it. And then the next turn, because it goes to the next chapter after your draw step, you will not be able to attack with it. You're going to have to sacrifice it before. So 1 attack for 5 mana on this 7/7. But that's if you're not able to manipulate the counters. So that's kind of the thing that's really important, I think, if you want to include a card like this in your deck. Because just on face value, 5 mana for what it does is sort of tough to stomach, I'd say.
Yeah, it's not great, especially because you get more value almost out of the blocking ability from it. So you might not even attack that second turn where it can attack because, you can block twice.
Yeah, it gets 2 rounds of blocking.
Yeah.
But it's a 7/7 with trample. It does have reach, so that is the blocking part of it.
Yeah.
But not being able to swing in with it really because you just don't have it very long is kind of a downside.
And it sucks to play 5 mana for something that does not stick around, especially if it's a creature.
Yeah.
So that's
but if you get a lot of lands, I think those stick around. So that could be. It's sort of determined by how many lands you could get, but it's also determined by can you mess around with the counters? Because if you can take a counter off, then all of a sudden you have the ability for this big 7/7 to stick around for a lot longer. And also, because every turn it will get another counter. If you take one away and then put it back on, and take it away and put it back on, you might be able to get some of these effects multiple times.
Yeah, and that's where we'll start off with the review of this card is there have been a lot of cards that work really well with sagas because they care about counters. And this is an archetype that's being supported more and more as time goes on.
Yeah, you want to be able to remove counters for... That'd be the most important. I think adding could be possible. Like you play this, add a counter, immediately get the second part just to get the lands in play faster. But for the most part, removing the counters will allow you to have the creature stick around for longer, which will allow you to sort of reuse the abilities more.
Yeah.
So but stuff that just removes counters is harder to find than stuff that removes like specifically +1/+1 counters or other things like that. There's a number of cards, but it's not endless.
Yeah, fortunately, this card, the first one we'll talk about is called Nesting Grounds. This was in Modern Horizons reprint most recently. And this is a card I think, if you don't have this in your stable of cards, it's a great one to pick up at cardcam.com/command. Yeah. Because there is just going to be more sagas and more counters specifically, because we've now seen keyword counters and all sorts of different ones. But this is a land that taps to add colorless, and you can pay 1 and tap it to move a counter from target permanent you control onto another target permanent. Activate only as a sorcery.
Yeah, the way this is worded, it removes any kind of counter from any kind of permanent. This is going to be good forever. Anything, they create new counters on new permanent types in the future, this is going to interact
counters,
with them.
Yeah. And it's great because when you take a lore counter off the summon Titan, it doesn't, who cares where you put it?
Yeah, lore counters don't really do anything on anything that's not a saga or a summon, right? So you take the lore counter off, you put it onto a land, the land didn't change in any way. It doesn't care.
Yeah.
And also, if you played another saga or something later, you could take that lore counter off the land and put it onto the new saga to kind of advance it faster. And there are other cards that maybe you want to get to chapter 3 as fast as possible or something like that.
Or there's cards that have like 5 chapters or whatever, and first 3 chapters do the same thing. So you could play Summon Titan and have the Nesting Grounds move it immediately to another card. Because if you go from 1 to 0, that means you're going to get that mill 5 again. Or if you go from 2 to 1, then you get the second one again. So you can kind of have that control of deciding, okay, I want to make sure I mill more because I maybe didn't hit enough lands the first time around.
Yeah, it's interesting because the second chapter on Summon Titan, that return all lands from your graveyard to the battlefield, is not necessarily that great to do right away again.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, you mill 5. Maybe you did some other stuff in the game and you've got a couple more lands from other things in there. You bring all the lands back. Well, then if you want to do that again next turn, you just took all the lands out of your graveyard and already put them into play. There's no lands in there anymore. So you almost want to mill again. So a couple of times to get more lands in there before you do, you know, you get to chapter 2 again. So I could see you like playing it on chapter 1 and then removing it before it gets to chapter 2 and getting chapter 1 a couple times to kind of, you know, plant as many lands into your graveyard as possible.
Yeah, unless you got a bunch of fetch lands, which would be really good with this because you can untap with it and then boom, go all over again.
Yeah, you sacrifice your fetch lands, put them in the graveyard, get that chapter 2, then next turn Nesting Grounds back to chapter 1. Your fetch lands that you just sacrificed are back in your graveyard. Goes to chapter 2, bring the fetch lands back again. That's a pretty good engine, a pretty good loop to be in. I mean, even in a modest scenario where we've only got like 2 fetch lands.
Yeah, and Evolving Wilds and regular fetch.
If you have Nesting Grounds or something to take counters off and you do that like 3 turns in a row, you're just up 6 lands on the table. Like that's game-winning type of stuff.
Yeah, that's really big. The only downside to Nesting Grounds is at sorcery speed only. But this next card gets around that. It's Hex Parasite. This is a 1-mana, 1/1 artifact creature insect with an activated ability that costs X and a Phyrexian black mana. So you'd have to play this in a deck that has green and black in it. And it says remove up to X counters from target permanent. For each counter removed this way, Hex Parasite gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Don't really care so much about the power buff, but instant speed removal with a potential mana reduction is pretty nice with the Phyrexian mana.
Yeah, and the ability to take multiple counters off is nice too, so that if you play this afterwards or you want to go...
From 2 to 0 instead of 2 to 1.
Yeah, exactly. You can kind of pick where you want to be. Now, you can't go from 3 back to 0. Once chapter 3 goes, the sacrifice trigger is going to be on the stack, and removing counters at that point won't let you keep the Titan around. So you really can only play around with the first 2 chapters. But still, going to 2 and then going all the way back to 0 is pretty nice. And then you could go to 1, back to 0, 1 back to 0, 1 back to 0, get 15 more cards in there, and then, you know, and with Nesting Grounds in combination with this, you could really like go off, right? Like remove, add.
Remove,
Get that ability a couple times.
Yeah, nice thing about Hex Parasite 2 is that it is instant speed. It's also an activated ability, and you don't need to wait for like the untapping, right? You untap with the fetch lands, and then before Chapter 2's trigger resolves, you can't Nesting Grounds back to 1. You could Hex Parasite it, so you can mess around a little bit more with the timing.
Yeah, it doesn't require tapping, so you could get a little more tricky with it for sure.
Yeah, and Nesting Ground technically costs you 2 mana because it itself is a land that you could have tapped for something else.
So the other part of this card so we've been talking mostly about the second chapter, which I think is the most powerful part, getting lands into play and trying to get as many as possible. But that third chapter of like pump a creature really big is powerful.
Could win the game.
It's possible, could make something really huge and you swing out or whatever. But I also think like if you're going to let the Titan get to chapter 3, you're going to have to sacrifice it, and you're going to want cards in your deck if that's part of your plan that allow you to get value out of it before it goes away. So like if I have Greater Good in my deck, Summon Titan gets a lot better because now chapter 3 goes off, I pump this creature over here +8/+8, and then before I have to sacrifice it to the lore counters, I sacrifice it to the Greater Good and I draw all the cards. And then I could potentially attack with the thing that got pumped and then sacrifice that. You know, you can draw like 17, 20 cards.
Jeez.
Yeah, that sounds like something I would want to do, actually.
Yeah, and you're already in a deck that maybe wants to mill cards, so the discarding of Greater Good's pretty good for you there.
Yep.
Yeah, so being able to sack both the Titan and the other creature if it does, you know, somehow be at risk of going away, or you just know that, hey, I'm not going to be able to use it the next turn.
Or you pumped, you know, the Hex Parasite, and you're like, you know, now that the Titan's gone, I don't really need it. I'd rather just turn it into, you know, 10 cards or whatever. Yeah,
the trample's really relevant here because the damage will get through, and then if the creature afterwards is like kind of measly, or it gets blocked and might die in combat or something, you know,
response.
I'll second response, or they find a way to remove it, great. I'll still get the value from this Greater Good.
Yeah, also if you have like Fling in your deck, that's a similar type of thing. You can fling the Summon Titan in response to that third chapter, or you can fling the thing that it pumped, you know, maybe after it attacked or whatever. And that could be game ending as well, because if you've got 12 lands in play, maybe the thing is like 17, 18 power and that just finishes somebody off.
Yeah, if you're like playing a Xenagod deck, you know, you
boy.
could boost the Summon Titan on the turn it attacks and maybe get that huge boost, you know, afterwards when you plus it with the Titan for another creature.
Double it after it's been pumped.
You're drawing like 30 cards or something with Greater Good, or
Probably
someone.
swung in there for 32.
Yeah, you might just one-shot someone with a fling.
Yeah.
So that's my dream come true.
A way to evaluate cards, and I think when thinking about Summon Titan, this works really well, is to sort of find cards that have that are doing similar things. Mm-hmm. So what you call them comps or comparables.
Yeah.
Find comps and then figure out what is the differences between the Summon Titan and the comps to try and figure out like which is better for my deck, because sometimes you have a card that's very similar to this and it's hard to you know, figure out like, well, should I have A or should I have B?
Yeah.
So Splendid Reclamation is like the classic
original, yeah.
Yeah, kind of the first card or one of the first cards that had this effect. And it's just a sorcery for 3 and a green that has that second effect, which is return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Mm-hmm. And so I would think of it this way, like, okay, given that I have that card in my deck, Splendid Reclamation already, is Summon Titan going to be better than that? And there's a lot of situation where Summon Titan probably is. Like, imagine you're playing a green-black deck, and you have things like Reanimate, Animate Dead, things that can bring creatures back from your graveyard to the battlefield. All of a sudden, Splendid Reclamation is not that easy. Green could do it with like Eternal Witness and some other stuff, but black can't really interact with instants and sorceries in his graveyard. So the synergies might be a lot better for Summon Titan.
Yeah.
That's similar to the Nesting Grounds thing, where if I have Nesting Grounds in my deck or Hex Parasite, Splendid Reclamation is worse than Summon Titan all of a sudden because I don't have those other synergies to kind of keep it going.
Yeah, you reduce the count in one area for a niche effect, and then you're hurting your overall synergistic flow of the deck.
Yeah, this is what we talk about when we talk about deck building about overlap. It's all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I already have counter synergy in my deck. Splendid Reclamation was there as a ramp card because I'm self-milling or whatever, but now I can put a piece that also wants counter manipulation. Now it synergizes with more of my deck than Splendid Reclamation. Whereas let's say I had a deck that was like green and blue, and I have Archaeomancer or I've got Snapcaster Mage or something like that. Splendid Reclamation might look better than Summon Titan because I have the instant and sorceries, or I have things that trigger off when I cast instants and sorceries or whatever.
Yeah. And you have to ask yourself the risk reward too. Obviously, the Summon Titan has to stick around till the second turn to get the ability. But if you know that you're not in a super board wipe heavy meta or whatever, then that might be much more realistic to do. Another great way to evaluate too is just like in your opening hand in your deck, would you rather have a Splendid Reclamation or Summon Titan?
Yeah, and again, I think it's Summon Titan because it has the mill on it.
Yeah.
Whereas Splendid Reclamation does not. So the Summon Titan is its own engine. Even if you can't manipulate the counters, it will probably do something. Whereas Splendid Reclamation says, listen,
you better hope you get there. Yeah.
If you haven't got something else has to have put lands in your graveyard, and then I'll do something. Summon Titan is like,
I'll handle that first part.
Yeah, I can also put some lands in your graveyard. Like, hopefully you were able to put more lands than just what I've been put there, but it won't do nothing.
Yeah.
So its floor is a lot higher.
Yeah, even though it's 1 mana higher. But in, again, a deck that has a bunch of ramp already, 5 mana versus 4 mana is a bit less of a difference.
Yeah.
And then the card that's even harder to evaluate against is like Will of the Sultai.
Ooh.
So this is 4 and green. Choose one. If you control commander as you cast a spell, you may choose both. And it says target player mills 3 cards, return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped.
So just chapters 1 and 2 at the same time.
Yeah, but with 2 less cards milled.
Yep.
And you could mill someone else if you wanted to, but that's probably not going to happen.
Nope.
And then the second ability is the third chapter, kind of. It's put X +1/+1 counters on target creature where X is the number of lands you control and it gains trample until end of turn.
Now those are counters. It's not the pump lasts forever, but the trample's only until end of turn.
Yeah.
Again, though, I'd say along similar lines where it's like, well, this isn't a sorcery. So if you have creature reanimation stuff, Summon Titan might be better. If you have counter manipulation stuff, Summon Titan might be better. This is a little more explosive, or a lot more explosive maybe than Splendid Reclamation. Also depends, like, am I planning to have my commander be out all the time? Is it a commander I play late, not early?
If you're playing the new TITANIC, which loves to move counters around, then you do want to have maybe a Will of the Sultai in there because now you know your commander is an integral part of the deck.
Yeah, that might be better than Summon Titan in that deck. Although, because TITANIC manipulates counters, Summon Titan's pretty good in there.
Maybe you do both because the 1/1 counters matter there too, right?
There's stuff like Lumra, Bellow of the Woods, which is a creature that sort of does similar things. Its power and toughness are equal to the lands you control, but then it says when it enters mill 4, return all land cards from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So it is just chapters 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But all at once, you don't have to wait. But there's no ability to sort of redo this. I guess you can blink it. So
yeah, I mean, here's the thing, and you said this already, which is like, you don't want to have the part where things come back to the battlefield if you've already emptied your graveyard once.
Right.
And if you don't have fetch lands or anything else and you're only relying on that mill. So you do have to ask yourself, like, how many redundant effects of return all lands to the battlefield do I want in this deck? That's why I really like the creature versions of this card. Like Aftermath Analyst is probably just
the best version of this.
It's the best version because it's a 2-mana card that comes in and mills 3, and then you can choose to pay 4 mana at another time to sack it to return all land cards from your battlefield tapped. So it's not like I'm going to the 3rd chapter, I'm the 2nd chapter, I hope to have it there by that time. It's like, no, you can actually wait to activate the Aftermath Analyst when it's at your optimal timing.
Aftermath Analyst I play a ton of. It's a very good card because of the installment payment and it only costs 2 at the front. So interesting ways to think about things. Another thing I would think about is Summon Titan just gets a lot better if you're already milling, right? So that if you draw it later, but you've already played your Stitcher's Supplier and your Ripples of Undeath and all this stuff, this low mana cost stuff that starts filling the graveyard early. And now when I play it, there are already 10, 15 cards in my graveyard, which means there are probably already 6 or 7 lands in there. And now it mills me 5 more, and it threatens on Chapter 2 to bring back 7, 8, 9 lands. And now it's not like, hey, I have to do this 3 times to get my 6 lands. Just the one shot of it will do it.
We'll do it, yeah.
And now all of a sudden, maybe I don't need counter manipulation at all in that deck. The other self mill is going to fuel that part. And I like the mill on it anyway because I'm reanimating or, obviously my deck already wants to mill. It's already doing that with its other cards.
Yeah.
So that Chapter 1 is really impactful to me as well. And those feel like the type of decks that are going to play Summon Titan the most.
Yeah, one card I really like in the deck that we've sort of been talking about, we've been crafting it sort of mentally here, is World Shaper. Because this is a 3 and a green card that when it attacks, you may mill 3, and when it dies, you return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And if you are playing the greater good version of this deck, with the fling version of this deck, then a card like World Shaper does it all and gives you the flexibility.
Yeah,
so I think that's the important part, is the flexibility of when exactly those cards are coming back.
Let's talk about some specific commanders that Summon Titan might want to go in those decks or might be good with. The first one we have down here is a Nixthia, Hand of Erebos, which is 2 in Abzan, so 2 white, green, and black for a 4/4 legendary enchantment creature demigod. Has Menace, Menace. Says other enchantment creatures you control have Menace. And it says whenever a Nixthia enters the battlefield or attacks, exile up to 1 target non-aura enchantment card from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of the card, except it's a 3/3 black zombie creature in addition to its other types. Nice. So this is what we were talking about, where you go through the whole cycle maybe with Summon Titan. You sacrifice it, goes to the graveyard, and now a Nixthia can bring it back, mill again, fuel a Nixthia's future abilities because she wants things in the graveyards, but also because you've milled again, there are more land cards in there, and they're going to get them back on Chapter 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Nixthia has Menace and wants to attack. Summon Titan is a card that wants to attack. And it's in a deck that wants to attack, and it's a creature that wants to attack. So it works really well with both the enchantment side of it and what the creature side of it can do as well.
Yeah, but the card doesn't just want to go necessarily in self-mill decks. It might go... The enchantment part of it might be the important part.
Yeah. Goshintai of Life's Origin is the Shrine Commander. You can pay Wooburg and tap it to return an enchantment from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then whenever Goshintai or another non-token shrine enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1 colorless Shrine enchantment creature token.
Yeah, now Summon Titan is not a shrine, so it won't interact with that second ability. But the first one, where you just get to return an enchantment from your graveyard to the battlefield, that's going to be really, possibly powerful with Summon Titan. Because, again, same thing, goes through the whole cycle, pumps something, got a bunch of lands back. And then later, when you're like, oh, I've got more lands in there or whatever's going on, some of them were fetch lands, bring it back, mill, get the whole thing again.
Also threatening a blocker. Instant speed, hey, I can pull out a 7/7 from my graveyard that will block if you decide to attack me, or I have this other bevy of options.
I really like that. It's a threat of activation. That means like I can't really even attack Jimmy with, even my 5/5 flyer, because all he's got to do is pay 5 and bring back the Summon Titan as a reach blocker.
And it's going to mill more cards that maybe he's going to return something even crazier back the next turn.
Yeah, and that means Jimmy doesn't even have to do it. He just sits there on it. They don't attack him. And then at the end step, he's like, cool, I'm actually going to bring back this other thing.
Yeah, because it's better for the situation.
And now I'll just sit there again, and you're in the same problem the next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. And I will say, too, enchantment decks are kind of known for like a lot of wheel spinning, and one of the problems can be like, hey, I've got my enchantresses, and then I play an enchantment, and I draw cards, but I didn't really
do anything.
Yeah. And this is a 7/7, and it's good on defense. So a lot of times people are like, cool, you're drawing a lot of cards, but we have to kill you.
Yeah.
Because you're doing all this stuff, and we know that's going to be bad for us eventually, but right now, you're playing a bunch of cards that don't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so having a thing that's like, no, it's the blocking part of it and how you said that, like you get blocking for 2 turns and attacking for only 1.
Yeah.
Well, then that makes me naturally think, it's going to want to go in a little bit of a defensive deck, and enchantment decks tend to be like that.
Yeah, and Enchantress decks also kind of are priced into having to play the Sphere of Safety and Propagandas to stop players from attacking. So this also eases that burden a little bit on the deck.
Yeah.
You probably still play those cards, but they're not as like integral because you have these summons that will help you at least on the defensive side.
Another commander, there's going to be a bunch, we'll just talk about one more that we thought would go well with Summon Titan is Tyam Luminous Enigma, which is 1 in Abzan, so 1 white, black, green for a 3/3 legendary nightmare beast. Says each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional vigilance counter on it.
Ooh.
And then
There's the vigilance.
Yeah, there it is. And then you can pay 3, remove 3 counters from among creatures you control, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, then return a permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Wow. So normally it's like hard to get 3 counters on stuff, or you're hoping you have multiple things out. But with Tyam entering, allowing them to come up with a vigilance counter and the 2 saga counters you're at before it attacks itself, that's 3.
Yeah, at chapter 2, it has exactly 3. You remove all 3.
Back to 0.
Back to 0, and you're going to get those abilities again. Plus, when you remove the counters, you mill 3 cards.
And you get something else back.
You get 3 CMC stuff back, but also that might put more lands into your graveyard, and you're going to mill 5 again, and like that loop is pretty nice once you've got it going.
Yeah, so Summon Titan, I really like it because it does have, with Tyam and Onyxia, it feels really synergistic.
Yeah. Let's talk about, before we go here, I want to just talk about Saga Creatures in general.
Yes.
Because, we had the old sagas, which just go through the chapters, but they're enchantments, and they go away. And now they've added, the creature component, the power and toughness to this. Do you think this makes sagas better or worse? Do you think summons are better or worse than sagas, the fact that they have power and toughness in our creatures?
Yeah, it's a great question because you have to weigh the new side of it, which is enchantments are a bit harder to remove in Commander in general. And players aren't as incentivized to remove a saga enchantment because it's going to go away, or if the 3rd chapter or last chapter isn't that scary, they're like, it's okay, it's fine. But it being a creature means that, boy, there's a lot more spells that now take care of this, as well as just your regular old board wipe.
Yeah. Yeah, most decks only have a few ways to take care of a permanent type like enchantment.
Yeah.
But decks have a lot of ways to take care of creatures because we know we're going to run into creatures. Everybody's got commanders, right? So it just feels better to put creature removal and board wipes in your deck than it does to put a lot of enchantment removal. You know you need it and you have a few, but you're not as dense in that regard. So I think it kind of... So that's a downside from regular sagas in that they are going to be easier to remove. And if you think of Summon Titan in particular, its 2nd chapter is its most powerful, where it brings the lands in the graveyard. And let's say I'm playing a self-mill deck, and I've milled 20 cards into my graveyard, and I play Summon Titan and mills 5 more. What's the first question you're going to ask me?
How many lands are in your graveyard, Josh?
Yeah, exactly. And I have to go count and go 12.
And you're going to go, okay, well, that means getting that to the 2nd chapter is bad news.
So we have to kill that thing before it gets to the next chapter.
Does anyone have creature removal?
Yes, exactly. So the fact that it's easier to remove and it's telegraphed does sort of hurt it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think also, and I'm just have Rachel in my head, Rachel would probably say, yeah, but this thing has 7 power and 7 toughness, which a saga doesn't usually have, which means it can attack. It can deal 7 to your opponents. It can stop attacks, like we talked about earlier. It affects the board in a way that a normal saga would not.
Yeah, sure, it draws a little bit of additional attention, but maybe at that time, it's actually not the scariest thing on the board.
Yeah, and I, am not the type of player that tends to, use combat as a way to win. Like I'm not usually building my decks
to win with combat.
Yeah, I'm going to set up some sort of weird engine that's doing something over here. Draws a bunch of cards.
I'm going to ping you 1,000 times.
Yeah, exactly. But that's just how I like to play. It's not right or wrong to do one thing or the other. Just like it's not right to love chocolate over pistachio or vice versa. But it is easy for me to sort of in my head immediately think like, well, it's a creature. That's just automatically worse than a saga.
Yeah. When
I don't think that's true. You have to have Rachel in your head being like, listen, don't discount the fact that it just is big. It is a creature. It will have an effect on the game in a different way than a saga will have because it can attack and block.
Yeah, think about your entire deck right now. What of your creatures can stand up to a 7/7 trampler?
Yeah, like in my average deck,
even.
None.
Yeah, you don't play flyers that are bigger than 7/7 generally, right? Yeah. They're usually 2/2s, 3/3s, or whatever. So yeah, that's for sure. I think the player style matters a lot when evaluating these cards. I do like the fact that you can reanimate it.
Yeah.
So in a deck that's already milling,
Really good point.
it's a creature. And also like we talked about with the Nixia and Tayam, they're both things that also reanimate cards. So there is additional synergy here. So it's like better in some circumstances, worse in the other. But that's great. That's like part of the beauty of Magic these days is that you have cards that are not just good on one tier, but you have to sort of take an extra step. And then from that space, you go, great, it's not just generically powerful. It could just be great in these circumstances. And that allows me to feel cooler when I play it and to do the cool thing.
That's right. Yeah. I'm definitely going to be moving counters around because that's, I don't know why. But I
you got your
really
Tom
like that
Bombadil
point
deck
about
and stuff,
reanimating, right? It's actually relatively difficult to get an enchantment out of your graveyard and back into play. There are cards that do it, but there are fewer cards that do that by far than that get a creature back. That's pretty common. There's a lot of ways, and a lot of colors have different ways to get creatures back in from their graveyard.
Yeah, and that sort of makes the part where you get punished if it gets removed early, it takes the bite off of that. Because I think in a game of Commander, you can only get punished so many times before you're just actively losing that game. And so you want to reduce the chances of that happening in general, whether or not it's you're playing. That's why I play Heroic Intervention.
Yeah.
That's why I have protection spells or counter spells, is so I don't lose so hard when I play something and invest so much into it. So the fact that you can reanimate it does add to it. That you can play Heroic Intervention in response to removal spell as well does help this out a bit.
Very cool.
And you can blink it too. Ooh,
yeah.
All our blink players out there.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about blink. Blink is a good way to sort of reset the counters and sort of reuse it. So if you're pairing it with blue or white or something like that, pretty good chance you might be able to blink it. And now all of a sudden, it's sort of a mill engine that eventually ramps you by a lot.
Yeah, I think one other thing I was thinking about, games are now going until turn 8 or 9 that in our play group. And but let's say you play this
more
on
like
5,
8 than 9 these days.
You get up to 8, and at that point, is it like, are you actually that sad that the creature has sacrificed itself? Because maybe you're just at the point where the game is about to end, and that 7/7 being around for one extra turn of combat doesn't make the difference.
Yeah, honestly, if the game's 8 turns, it milled you for 5, you milled some other way, it got, let's say modestly, 3 extra lands in play, stopped 2 attacks against you, and then went away, pumped something, you did something with the pump thing, but you really just like, Explosive Vegetation's 4 mana gets you 2 lands, this was 5 mana, got you 3 lands, plus it was a creature, plus
maybe it attacked.
Pumped something out, maybe it attacked, maybe it milled. Like, you got a lot more for that 1 extra mana than, the Sky Shard Claim and stuff, like, those are cards we play.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe even thinking about it as like I have to be able to reuse it or mess with the counters or get it to stick around longer. I think all you need is a little bit more to make it like pretty good, and that could just be I have a couple of blink spells. Yeah.
Or my deck is Goldberry, and I have cards like that move counters around or Tidus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, to the listeners, what do you think about Summon Titan? Summon Titan!
Summon Titan!
And just summon cards in general. What do you think about that design? I personally really like it a lot, and I think they found sort of the perfect mix there. And are there any decks that you're going to use either any of the summon creatures or particularly Summon Titan? Summon Titan!
Summon Titan! Math Titan.
Yeah, how are you going to use this card?
Yeah, I'm sure there's some use cases that we didn't talk about here today. Make sure you comment down below. It's going to be a fun comment section, especially because it's Final Fantasy. Yeah, and I'm sure maybe there's a thematic version of this that goes into a deck that it matches perfectly that we haven't thought about.
Before we go, I did want to do an end step. We want to talk about...
Yeah, this is a cool one.
Yeah, our friend Christian Navarro, who was on Game Nights for the Ether Drift episode, was on 13 Reasons Why on Netflix, has started up a new D&D gameplay show called Tales Unrolled. It's out now. We'll put a link in the show notes. There's both a video and an audio version. And the thing I really like about Christian's show is Christian's an actor and knows a lot of performers and is sort of leaning towards, having performers on the show. So they're all very entertaining people.
So it's like a high, well-crafted experience on top of everything else.
Yeah, Jimmy, you've got some experience with D&D gameplay.
I do, yeah. Dungeons and Daddies.
They haven't invited me yet for some reason, but...
Yeah. We should text it. And then Critical Role has a lot of the same DNA, right? They're performers that also are gamers.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
having that together, both improv, comedy, and just understanding what makes a good story, gives you people that aren't just going to play to min-max their character and do the ultimate best thing, but maybe they purposefully do something that their character would mess up in or whatever that adds to that flavor of like, oh yeah, they are flawed. And that's going to make it a more compelling version of that story.
Yeah, I watch this stuff to be entertained. And having entertainers helps a lot in that regard. So
yeah, I don't care about the optimal way to level up your paladin, right?
Yeah.
I want to see the flaws in that character and how it makes
some funny stuff to happen or some cool stuff to happen. Yeah. So Tales Unrolled, again, we'll have the links in the show notes. It's Christian Navarro's show. Definitely worth checking out.
Yeah. All right. And before we go, let's talk about our sponsors. CardKingdom.com/command. We talked about a lot of cards today. That Nixia deck finally is looking real spicy. The Tayam deck
That's cool, but let's talk about the real thing. You want to build a cloud deck.
You want to buy the Buster Sword.
Yeah, you want a Titus deck. Sorry, Titus.
Cecil. Ugh.
I know. I will call it Cecil forever. I'm sorry. But I did learn it's supposed to be pronounced Cecil.
You want a Sid X16 deck.
Oh, that actually is good.
Yeah,
that's
pretty
cool,
sweet. So yeah, check it out, cardgame.com/command. They're going to have the cards that you want in the quality you want, in the version that you want. There's a lot of really sweet versions of these Final Fantasy cards. So you can really deck out that Final Fantasy deck, get it all delivered to your door in one single package. They have great customer service too. So if anything does happen to go wrong with your order, they're right there to help you with it. Of course, you support the show while you buy from Card Kingdom. So go to cardkingdom.com/command for all your Magic card needs.
Speaking of sleeving up your deck and supporting the show, Ultra Pro is the game accessories brand that we trust our own collections to here at the Command Zone. If you go to ultrapro.com/command, you can find playmats. They've got the sleeves and the deck boxes. ultrapro.com/command is a place to go to find all of that great stuff. And also, I want to say, the Ultra Pro website, they often have a lot of discounts. It's one of the websites that I sort of check like at least once a week just to see what they got going on. So,
and their newsletter too.
Yeah, signing up for the newsletter. I don't sign up for any newsletters. I am a signee to the Ultra Pro one because, again, they will just let you know, like, hey, we're doing 40% off or whatever. This thing, which you can get some great deals. So again, ultrapro.com/command. Before we go, I did want to mention one more thing, which is MAGICCON Las Vegas.
Coming up.
Yep, June 20th through the 22nd in Las Vegas, obviously. We're going to be doing game nights live at that MAGICCON, and I'm not sure we've announced this yet, but maybe we have. Otherwise, here's the announcement.
Aha.
The Professor is going to be a part of that show.
What?
Yes.
I love that guy.
One of the players in the game. Voxy also going to be joining us as the fourth player, so we've got a heck of a pod. I always like having Voxy in any pod with the Professor because she just will not put up with any of his crap.
Yeah. She knows him quite well, too. I love Voxy. She's the best.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be really fun. That show is on the Friday, which is June 20th at 4 p.m. on the Mana stage, which is the main stage at the convention. I was told that the badges for Las Vegas are like over 70% sold out at this point. So
probably more at this point by the time you see this.
That's true. Yeah. We're recording this about a week before you're going to see it. So I wanted to say that just by way of like, hey, if you've been thinking about like, I want to go to Vegas, you should purchase your badges right away. We'll have a link in the show notes for where you can find those. Just because we hear stories all the time from people who are like, oh, I wanted to go, but I didn't go to get my badges until the week before, and they didn't have any left because the shows often sell out. So get your badges soon if you want to come hang out. It's going to be a ton of fun. And I guess one more announcement, another thing I'm not sure we've announced before this, but we're actually doing a second event. So we're doing Game Nights Live. We'll do meet and greets and stuff too, but then we have a second event on the main stage that we're doing. We've never done this before.
On Sunday, the 22nd at 12:30 p.m.
Yeah, so they're calling it the Magic Pentathlon.
Whoa.
So there's going to be two teams, Team Command Zone, which will be me, Jimmy, Rachel, Jordan, and LadeeDanger is going to join us.
Oh, heck
She works at Wizards now, but she's still part of the Command Zone family.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be against Team LoadingReadyRun.
Uh-oh.
Don't say uh-oh.
Oh, I mean, for them.
Show confidence, Jimmy.
Uh-oh, they're in for a beating.
Uh-oh for them.
I'm empathetic.
The thing is, we don't know what the events are for the pentathlon. They won't tell us. So I don't know.
It'll be a surprise.
I have a feeling it's going to be like trivia or like...
As long as it's not cardio, I am doing okay.
I don't know. Against Loading Ready Run, if it's like Magic trivia or something, like we're going to be leaning heavily on Rachel.
It's like flavor text trivia. Yeah, we're done.
Flavor text trivia.
Name
5 cards where they're wearing a hat. Oh, man.
No.
Yeah. So anyway, that's going to be a lot of fun. We would love it if you would show up on Sunday to support Team Command Zone. Yeah, we could use it.
Yeah. No, what do you mean we could use it?
Just support in general. We could use it because we're already going to win.
Exactly. Yeah, you want to root for the winning team anyway, even if you are a bigger Loading Ready Run fan. Right, there it is. Yeah, so check it out, 12:30 on the main stage, right?
Yeah,
the main stage.
Sunday.
On Sunday. Okay, cool. Big thanks to our amazing team here at the Command Zone, Rachel Kendra, Karina Cruz, Christopher Matista, Sebastian Salazar, Gaurav Galati, Jamie Block, Jordan Pridgeon, Jake Boss, Eric Lem, Manson Long, Josh Murphy, Evan Limburger, Sam Waldo, and Rachel Weeks.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.